I ended up going back to the Crockett's, and Dusty came in, and we had a great run. We really did. That was really the one time that somebody gave Vince a run for his money, and the Road Warriors were hot. Dusty was hot. Magnum had been developed by Bill Watson, came in, and he had been a star in a growing star in the business. And Flair was there, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson came in, and the whole Horseman thing was a spontaneous thing. It really wasn't something by design. It just started, and I think Arn Anderson is the one that used the term the first time, and then the people would go like this. And I still, after all these years being off TV, every now I went to one of Piper's book signings last week, and so there was some wrestling fans I called because they weren't sure, and all of a sudden I could yes, and it's it's nice that they still remember. But it was an incredible run.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of questions about that run. You came in managing Buddy Landel?
I think I did. I don't remember. Yeah, and it was the Real Nature Boy, and because Flair was such a huge star there as a babyface. So Flair was a heel everywhere else in the country. He was a babyface there, just like the Funks were huge babyfaces in Amarillo. But when they went to Florida to wrestle the Briscoes, they were the heels. The Briscoes were huge babyfaces in Florida. They'd come to Amarillo, they were the heels. So Buddy Landel was somebody that looked like, that was going to be the story was I'm the Real Nature Boy, younger, better, stronger, yada yada yada.
And what how come things didn't quite work out with Buddy Landel? There's all those stories about his drug problems that they held him back from getting the title.
Buddy had some demons that I think got the best of him, and I've talked to Buddy a few times since then. He was born again. He married a woman that I think was very good for him, but sometimes an opportunity comes along once in life, and that might have been it for Buddy, and he didn't take advantage of it and capitalize on it. And sadly, that gold ring never came around again on the merry-go-round for him to take a shot at it. And he had an incident. He had a tryout with the WWF and was leaving a hotel, and the automatic door opened against his leg and smashed his leg. He had to have surgery, and there was a big lawsuit over that. But he was a good guy.
Okay, you mentioned that the Horseman was kind of a spontaneous thing. Like, was it like an idea presented, or did the group just try to kind of come together? Like take us through to like the formation of the Horseman.
Well, Flair was Flair, and he was a huge star. And Ole initially had, because the Anderson brothers had done well in the Carolinas and had a tradition there going back to Ole and Lars. The only real Anderson was Gene. So Ole and Lars, then Ole and Gene, and then Lars left. So Ole and Gene were a huge card when I first went in there, and then Gene retired, and so Arn sent a tape in, and he became Arn Anderson, the other Anderson. So it reached a point where the Andersons were the tag champions. Tully Blanchard was the U.S. champion, and Flair was world champion for a while. Whatever, they had all the titles. So it ended up, I was managing Tully, and so we just started doing some promos together. And again, it was a spontaneous thing, and we just all fed off of each other. And then the first part of the storyline was because we needed opponents, and I don't remember how it came out, but Ole was the first one to get kicked out. And Ole had been there long enough that he was a very credible babyface. So then kept the revolving door of guys that came through that were Arn's partners. Tully was for a while, but Tully kind of stayed mostly as a single. But then Barry Windham came in, Lex Luger came in from Florida. There was a bunch of them that came through that spot, and it enabled us to then weed them out, and then they would become natural opponents for us as well. But it was a group of guys, and I was the fifth guy, so it was four horsemen and me who wasn't. we had a lot of airtime to fill too when we started doing the programming for TBS on Saturdays. And you talk about, again, promos being spontaneous. We would go out there and nothing could be more boring than a 5-minute promo. But in that studio setup with Flair, he was flamboyant, and he would do off the wall things, take his jacket off, take his clothes off, and it's like whatever flew that day, whatever happened, and if somebody didn't get a chance to talk, there was no hanging their face. Well, I didn't get any mic time. It was like whatever worked that day, and there wasn't the petty jealousies, and if somebody was tired or didn't feel good, somebody else picked up the slack, or if somebody got on a roll, they would let him go, and a lot of times we would have a 3-minute interview that would become a 6-minute interview because it was good and it just kept going.
So when the group first formed, it just kind of came together, and then the chemistry was just there, I guess.
Probably the logic was to capitalize on the fact that Flair was over so strong, and it was the rub that if Flair was out there, he was already over. But if Flair is out there with Tully and with Arn and his partner, then that gave them added credibility. And Flair was the kind of guy who could do that and still be himself, and it didn't take anything away from him, and it did what it was designed to do, which was to elevate everybody else.
When did you first realize that you kind of had something special going with that original group?
God, I don't know that there was ever, it happened, and we would go and just keep drawing, and we would get our asses kicked, and people would pay, and we'd come back and it would draw again. So it just it was a match that you could rubber stamp that the people kept wanting to see. And then every now and then we would do an angle or something to spice it up. But by and large, we didn't have to do that much. And Flair, anybody in this business who's successful has an ego. Flair had an ego, Dusty had an ego. And probably no one knows this. There's a few people that know this story, but I worked in the office. Dusty was the booker, and Dusty would come in and he would write the TV down on 2 sheets of paper, and he'd throw it down, and he'd get his bag over his shoulder, and he's gone. Well, and I'd have to go through it, and he would double book guys, and so I'm not taking anything away from Dusty. Dusty was very good at what he did, and you needed Dusty's presence and strong personality to be in that role. I was a behind-the-scenes type of person. Kevin Sullivan was much like that too. What we did was make Dusty look as good as he could possibly look, and then some. And we weren't about wanting to get credit for what we did. Because we were just happy to be in the business and happy to have that spot that we did. And so I was with Dusty for a long time, and I owe a lot to him for giving me that opportunity. But I also know that I helped Dusty in a lot of ways that maybe he's not even aware of.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.